Welcome to part 2 of my Abridged Yanzhou campaign in Rise of Three Kingdoms. Last time we went on an offensive against one of Cao Cao's cities. The place was a whole mess of enemy armies, but in a couple of pitched battles we managed to clear out most of the stuff surrounding the city. They quickly replaced it with even more stuff, but now we're just going to go ahead and assault the city since everything's out of reinforcement range, and Cao Cao himself happens to be inside. We've got some narrow streets packed with enemy troops. Looks like we've got a grind ahead of us. We'll have to hack our way towards that victory point and just do our best to avoid losses and use our archers to whittle the enemy down. As we approach, it is revealed that the enemy have catapults in their town square. One of them actually gets a direct hit on one of my rams, but surprisingly the ram doesn't take that much damage. You would expect that to just destroy it since it's so unlikely to even happen. That's a little bit unfair for the enemy, I think. So our two rams here make it up to a gate and a bit of the wall, and the archers follow behind to clear out nearby infantry. I've got two other rams over to our left who are supposed to be opening up some more breaches for us to use, but for whatever reason this part of the palisade wall is invincible. You can't ram this part down. Not sure why, so I ended up sending them around to the east side of the town instead. Our main attack from the north is stalled a little bit because Cao Cao is standing just beyond the gate, and I thought let's just stand here firing arrows at him to kill as many of his guards as we can. We're unlikely to kill him personally because he'll have loads of hit points, but might as well make his unit nice and weak. The gate's already open and I just finished opening up another hole in the wall for us to use. As I was just standing here, the enemy eventually sent troops out to attack me, which I didn't even expect. So ended up with a little fight going on there, but nothing too difficult. I'm still focusing on Cao Cao. I've now killed most of his men, so I'm going to target my archers onto something else. I'm not going to finish him off with arrows because I wanted to symbolically kill him by attacking with Lu Bu's cavalry unit. This proved to be slightly more difficult than expected because he doesn't necessarily want to go through the gate. When I give the attack order, he tries to go through the gap in the wall and through the enemy's infantry. So I sent him partially through the gate and then say attack, but no, he goes back outside. He really wants to go through that gap in the wall, so I thought fine, just do it. He has to plough through the infantry, but cavalry have quite a lot of weight in this mod and they can kind of walk through enemy units. So we do get the fight we were looking for. Meanwhile, we've got an unexpected fight on the east side of the town. Those two rams I sent off to go find another approach were actually attacked by enemies sallying out of the gate. Again, didn't expect them to bother trying. I think it's because in later games the AI isn't allowed to leave defences that it's trying to defend, so seeing the enemy actually come outside of the gate was a real surprise. At least we did get this fight going with Lu Bu, and as you saw there, I've got Zhang Liao bringing some heavy cav reinforcements to sort things out in the east. Cao Cao is now trapped there. He could run away, but he's not going to, so we'll just let him grind himself to death against our men, and there's the arrival of those heavy cav. Should be able to push back those light cav and generally secure that gate. A little while later, Cao Cao is down. It looked like some random peasant spearman actually dealt the final blow. He'll be very embarrassed about that. The enemy faction leader is dead, and one of the most powerful warlords in the land too. Not bad. I'm managing to push through this eastern gate, which is great. We don't need to get the ram to destroy it if we just run through while it's still open and capture it. And it's open because the enemy's cavalry are still hanging around here, refusing to quite retreat from the area. On the main approach, the few infantry units that came to challenge us are now running backwards, as we can see. Our archers are doing very well, just killing enemies as they wander around, so there's no need to rush into an attack there. Over in the east, things are more hairy. Our heavy cavalry have ended up fighting some enemy spears. I'm trying to order them to move to the south end of the town, the top of the screen here, but it's not happening. They decide to interpret the order as one to go and attack the nearby spearmen who are about to outflank them. That's not a good idea, so I'm going to try and constantly give them the order over and over again until they do it. Have to micromanage back over here at the main approach as well, because two of my generals seem to have charged forwards into the enemy. Maybe they were chasing a routing unit or something. My heavy cav managed to get out of a fight with enemy spears, so that's all good. Then we faced a decisive moment in this campaign as a whole. Lu Bu suddenly dies. Yes, he's down. Did not expect that to happen. He was hit by the catapult. And while officers like Lu Bu have tons of hit points, so normally they're very unlikely to die in battle unless their unit's in extreme peril, he died just standing there because the catapult hits you, and I believe the catapult doesn't take hit points into consideration. He's down. We've lost our faction leader in the same battle in which we killed the enemy's faction leader. What a disaster. Now Lu Bu's bodyguard will disappear after the fight, so I might as well just have them plow through the enemy and get as many kills as they can. I'm still trying to do something where I go around the south side of the town over here, but it's not quite working. Our men are ignoring those orders. Then we lose another general, Ho Cheng. I was trying to remember which picture that actually was. It's this guy here. This was another general who was also standing where Lu Bu's unit was standing, and apparently also got hit by the catapults. I'm guessing anyway. He doesn't appear to be in combat otherwise. The catapults have been taken out, but maybe they just about got a last shot as we overwhelmed them and killed another of our officers. That's absolutely insane. At least Lu Bu's unit's really powerful. I've used the special Fury of the Dragon ability, something like that it has, which probably makes it even more powerful, and they're just hacking through what remains of the enemy. Over here you can see my men proudly not obeying my orders as they come back into the fight with the spears that I told them to go around, but whatever. Our men reach the centre of the town very quickly, and the remaining enemy units start routing. They'll be routing right towards where my men are right now, so obviously they'll die very quickly, and we win, quote unquote. It's a pretty good result in terms of numbers, but the loss of Lu Bu has completely ruined the entire attack, and has maybe put a dampener on the campaign, since our faction only rebelled to support him. Now we awkwardly just have to fight what remains of Cao Cao's faction for no reason. Shouldn't forget about the other general that died, Ho Cheng, I think it's actually pronounced rather than Cheng, how it looks. He is probably irreplaceable as well. Not that I knew him very well. So yes, we did take the town, that's something to take away. I take a little look here at the family tree to see what the situation is right now. I'm guessing, since our heir was the 1-year-old kid, he is now technically the faction leader, but someone else, or the rest of the officers in general, will be acting as regents and actually making the decisions for us, or maybe we should take our chances with the 1-year-old. Now I could have gone on to attack more Cao Cao armies, but I thought I'll just end the turn and see if they attack me. I didn't feel like going on the offensive. They've got moves all over the place. We've got spies in their territory, so we can see them just wandering about with lots of small groups. The most important move is that one there. One of the larger groups of their troops near us starts falling back, leaving the other group that it was standing beside unsupported. Previously I had not wanted to attack them because they would reinforce each other, but that won't be the case now. There's news that the Yellow Turbans are at it again. This was the big rebellion that brought down the empire that used to rule everything prior to this point in the timeline, and there's talk of them possibly coming back for another go at rebellion. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Now, Lu Bu or no Lu Bu, all we can do is carry on with his project of defeating Cao Cao armies. I want to go after this one to the top right, the one that's now isolated, as I said, under Cao Shu. I initially set up this battle here where I was going to go after him with a whole load of stuff, and it looked like it would be a pretty easy affair, but now in a behind-the-scenes mystery moment, that was where one of my recordings ended. The next one begins here, in a slightly different situation, and I have no idea how I even made this happen. This time, the enemy army appears to have retreated because it's in a different position. We didn't fight it though, it's still got the same amount of troops in it. And I, for some reason, have now left most of my troops behind and gone in with a slightly smaller number, although since I've consolidated them all into one army, this is more practical and for all intents and purposes should be the same amount of troops. But we do end up facing a theoretically harder battle. So yes, not sure why I didn't go for that initial battle that I set up before, and I just don't remember for the life of me what happened in between me saving then and then me coming back another day to play again. That caused things to change. As for this battle, things don't go as I expected to begin with. I had loads of archers and the enemy didn't, so I thought I'd try and skirmish from over this hill, but the exact layout of the hill means I actually can't hit the enemy's archers while they can hit me, so things aren't going very well. We've also got issues with skirmishing AI, I believe anyway. Some of my troops are randomly falling back here, and I'm like, no, can you go back into the line please? It's a little bit annoying. In the end, I decided to give up on firing at the enemy archers because nothing was happening, but I had more luck firing at the troops further back, and many of the light units are really vulnerable to being attacked by arrows, so the enemy's left flank was devastated by our archers, and finally the enemy started charging at us. I think I should have charged back at them since we do have the hill on our side, but I was trying this out. All of our units have these shield wall abilities where they close ranks to receive charges, so we'll see what effect that has. It does cause your line to have gaps in it because it makes your formation more narrow on each unit, but the enemy don't really get through, so it's okay. The enemy plough everything they have into our line, which is exactly what we want them to do, because we've got loads of free units here and there who can now start outflanking the enemy. I wasn't paying much attention to the actual brawl going on in the centre, but looks like we managed to kill Cao Cao somehow. He was fighting some of my spears, I believe, in the very centre of the line, so good work from him getting himself killed. That will help us rout the enemy if I can just get my cavalry into the fight. I've gone way too wide on my flanking attack for some reason. Now I have to run uphill, making my charge very ineffective. Over here on our right, things went very well, since I'd already weakened the enemy with my archers, so their infantry were just defeated, and now my infantry are free to go and help out with the attack. Not that we especially need extra help. The enemy centre's breaking as well, and with the arrival of my cav, that's going to seal that deal. The last pocket of resistance on our left will then rout because everything else is routing. I did need to play through into the rout phase because I needed to get my percentage up, and I wanted to make sure I got all of the enemy's officers. We've captured 2 officers here, which will prove quite useful to us. There's the final result, a nice exchange where the enemy lost 4 times what we did. The captured officers add to the ransom value of the army quite nicely, and we end up with a very valuable set of prisoners to offer for sale. And this time it's accepted, I guess because mean old Cao Cao's dead, the rest of his clan actually wants to get their prisoners back. For the second time, Wei Shu is suggested as a potential adoption candidate, and this time I go for it, since more family members means it's more people you have to lose before you automatically get kicked out of the game, and that's probably going to help me out since I'm barely paying attention at the best of times. Now we want to grab the troops left in the town who haven't acted this turn and send them west to intercept the oncoming Cao armies before they start coalescing into something more powerful. So here we go, a nice battle where we have more than double the enemy's numbers, although they did still have some presence on the balance bar because they've got a few elite and heavy units among their number. But that's good, this should be an opportunity to kill those valuable units in a nice, easily controlled engagement. We had the skirmishing advantage again, but this time it was just a nice open battlefield so we can actually use it. Also, the enemy are all crossbowmen, whereas we have archers. Archers outrange crossbowmen but are a bit less powerful. What that means is the enemy have to advance towards us once we get close to try and engage us. They don't though, they advance towards us and then start going back because they want to restore their formation, I guess, giving us the free opportunity to just rain shots down upon them, and we kill about half of their heavy crossbowmen before anything even really happens using this method, so that is a great start. Unfortunately, I couldn't stand here gradually whittling everything away because the AI caught on to my scheme and decided to advance against me. Very good of it. We did get some nice kills shooting into their blobby formation as all their units ran through each other though. Now I spotted these enemy cavalry charging right at us, and I paused the game because I'm like, I do not trust my archers for 1 second to get out of the way of that charge. I had enormous difficulty selecting them to manually tell them to get out the way. If I hadn't paused the game, they'd be dead by now. And then I'm going to form a spear wall with our troops and just generally have the enemy run onto our prepared position. But I made a couple of big mistakes there that you might not have spotted. One was that I gave my men a walk order, not a run order, because the default is the other way round in the old games to how it is in the new games. And I actually didn't turn off skirmish mode, which you do have to do if you want to give a manual order when near the enemy, because skirmish mode overrides your order and makes them forget it the moment you give it to them. Now, instead of really commentating on this battle, I'm going to investigate a mystery that came to a head during this battle and has silently been going on in the background of this whole campaign. It involved something we just saw for a flash there, some enemy cavalry rushing towards my left flank and my own cavalry receiving that charge. Now in my head, I thought that was our officer Zhang Ba and our elite cavalry unit waiting out there, and thought fine, we'll receive the enemy and then outflank them. But very soon I discovered those guys are waiting in reserve just here, so who was it who was out here to receive the enemy charge? And it was actually some of my light cavalry who are now getting annihilated. This wasn't the first time that something weird had happened and my formation wasn't what I thought it was. And this time I'm actually going to investigate what's going on, because I was sure there's some sort of conspiracy against me. Here's footage of me putting all of my light cavalry in reserve at the back right of our army and putting the heavy cavalry on the left. Then here's me advancing towards the enemy. The light cavalry are still all on the right, sitting well out of harm's way, as we set up ready for our archers to begin the attack that I began commentating on in this battle. However, something strange happens. The unit card for the light cavalry says that they're still moving after the rest of the army stops, and here with this zoomed in shot of the minimap while the archers were fighting, we do see a unit going out of formation off to the extreme left. That was those light cavalry. As for the cause, it's something to do with giving the whole army movement orders to advance forwards in formation. Sometimes the AI likes to change the formation ever so slightly. I thought or suspected it had been happening in all of the prior battles, but I never mentioned it because I thought, oh, maybe I'm just misremembering which side I put the heavy cav on or something. But no, it does swap them round sometimes, or redistribute units in line so they're all in different positions. But anyway, now that that conspiracy has been proven true, back to the actual battle. The enemy's infantry split apart in the centre, so I could run through the centre and drive their archers away. The smoking gun battle over on the left attracts the attention of the enemy leader, which is great because most of my troops there are peasant spearmen who are pretty good for fighting generals, because not only does it not matter if they die, but they have a bonus against them, so they do surprisingly well. As for the infantry battles, the enemy's infantry is, in a lot of cases, better than mine, so I'm being forced to surround the enemy and just attack these pockets of resistance from all sides. The enemy commander dies, which will obviously help us rout enemy units, although in one case I shot myself in the foot a little bit. We've got this unit of heavy spearmen almost surrounded down here, but in Medieval 2 and Rome 1 in fact, there's the fight to the death mechanic, which means if you completely surround them, they actually can't rout. And I'm here sending in more and more troops to try and force them to rout, but no, it's never going to happen. I need to actually lay off on the attack so that they realise they can escape and then go for it. I've got some of my cav attacking spears stupidly as well. We get them out, and we're generally just chasing the enemy's archers away to the edge of the map, where I think my light cav eventually caught up with them and routed them. We cleared things up in those pockets of resistance once everything was dead, and once I actually realised what was going on and opened up my formation a bit more. Had to continue the battle once everything was routing, but soon there we go. It's not even the best result. I expected something a bit better given our big numerical advantage, but I suppose we did kill lots of elite enemy troops, which is always nice, and we took down another enemy general. I didn't want to ransom the captives because they had heavy troops among them, and as I recall from playing this mod ages ago, heavy troops are really hard to recruit and are quite rare, so by taking them down we've hopefully done some long-term damage to the Cao clan. I could go on now and actually start another battle, but I decided to go back to town and defend just to see what the Cao clan would do. They appear to have a rebellion near Xuchang, which is their capital, so that keeps them occupied for a bit. And broadly speaking, a lot of their troops are moving westward. I should say a lot of these small armies with only a few troops are moving westward. They do actually deploy 2 armies on our border, but within their own territory for now. Maybe they aren't feeling so aggressive anymore after we've taken them down a notch. At the start of the next turn, I could go after those 2 armies on our border, but I've got something else in mind. I want to go south towards the city of Cao, because cities are very important. They give you the most money in tax and they allow you to build higher tech level buildings, like the ones that recruit troops, which is obviously quite an important thing to have. So we'll prioritise attacking a city rather than defending the towns on our border, since they ultimately aren't actually that useful to us. Attacking the city proved to be more difficult than I expected. I wanted to attack from the southeast, to stay as far away from the enemy armies as possible, but it just didn't work out like that because the zone of control around the city immobilizes you, and while I thought you could attack while you were immobilized in a zone of control, you can't. Maybe I was actually out of movement points, since it was moving towards the edge of my range as well. I responded by sending a single unit of militia to start a siege as well. I thought that would allow me to then take an action with Zhang Liao and start him on a siege, but it doesn't work like that. What it did result in, though, is the garrison inside sallying out to attack this small group, and somehow I'm now in reinforcement range from the other side of the city, so it seems that reinforcement range kind of transmits through cities. It's not just one tile all around you, which is what I originally thought. So here we go, we've ended up with the garrison of the city fighting out in the field. It's a relatively balanced engagement, but if we can get a really big victory here and completely annihilate the enemy army, you actually get the city for free without having to do an assault. It's a classic siege draw-out scenario, so we'll happily be taking part in this fight at the start of the next part.